Hello, friends. I'm so happy to have you here with me today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with me, well, I'm glad you're here. Each week, I'm here with you talking to myself about things that weigh on my mind and heart, hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust both our perspectives as you listen. Hey, if you're struggling with something that needs immediate attention, please know that help is available. Just dial 988 nationwide in the U.S. to reach the Mental Health and Suicide Crisis Hotline. All of us here at CLW Studios believe that mental health is a vital part of our well-being. The more people I meet and the more places I go, the more I realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of your life that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy. And this week, the three fingers pointing back at me are for the stick versus the carrot. I have had to think about this a lot more frequently, and I don't know if I like it. I love the fact that it is more prevalent in my thought process at this point. Stick versus carrot, meaning consequence motivated versus reward motivated. I have friends in my life that are very diligent people. They get a lot of things done. It's really impressive to see what they get done in a day, in a week, in a month. They are well-traveled, they are well-read, they are well-educated. They have a wonderful variety of hobbies that they enjoy. And it's always interesting to me because whenever I get underneath the surface, when I start to dig to see really what makes them tick, it's always so interesting to see who, what, where, and why. I have friends that get a lot of things done and they have this wonderful joy in their hearts, this underlying current of happiness and contentment. And then I have others who have this very impressive list of accolades and accomplishments that for whatever reason there is an undercurrent of anxiety and a little bit of shade and just a touch of the chill. Now, I don't mean to say these things to give them any sort of criticism. Not at all. It's me trying to observe and trying to figure out exactly what it is that makes the wheels go around with these wonderful people I have in my life. And the more I thought about it, the more I watched and listened and asked questions and sort of tried to process what they were telling me about the way they live their lives, was that there what came down to almost a singularity. There were only two camps in this. There was a motivation by consequence and a motivation by reward. Okay. And what I mean by that is that some of these people get all of their things done because, like, well, if I don't get this finished, then this terrible thing will happen. And what I've always worked for my entire life will not come to fruition because I will have not completed X task. Meaning that the stick is employed. If you don't complete the list, well, you are looking for a punishment. Whereas when I get these things done, I can look forward to this, and this coming to fruition. And then I probably have two or three other things that probably have a very high probability of coming true or happening that are very exciting and wonderful. And there's probably one or two things that I didn't even think that would come to pass whenever I did these things. Whereas this motivation is very positive, very shiny, very reward driven. And I just want to spend a little time with us today, sort of pondering what those things mean and what sort of benefits we can get from using or employing one or both, or maybe oscillating between the two, taking a bit of an alternating method. I think that it's very important to know that there are some things in life that we need to fear the consequences. We need to be aware of them. Fear, perhaps not. I think that being aware of them and weighing the consequence versus the outcome we're hoping to reach and figuring out whether or not that gamble is worth a roll of the dice. In most things in life, I think the evaluation of the reward is a much more joyful and contented way of approaching something. I know that is not everyone's cup of tea. I understand that. I want to make sure I give respect to that because I have people in my life that are very much that person who wants to avoid the consequence instead of reaching the reward. Fine. I'm curious if you're one of those consequence people, if you would be willing to try the reward. It's not easy. I promise you, I know it's not. Whenever you get hardwired for something, that's something that stays with you, whether it's something that you did, whether it's something that was put there by your family or by your church or by organizations to whom you belong. It's difficult, especially if you've been brought up in a certain way. I found myself finding it very difficult to go outside the boundaries of something that was taught to me since I was knee high to a teaspoon. Okay. I love that phrase. I do. And I think that we need to continue to explore outside those boundaries. I think we need to do that as safely as possible until we know that, that something isn't going to come crashing down on our head or the guillotine isn't going to drop. I would also like to encourage you that there are so few things in this world where the outcome is the guillotine or the anvil. Okay. I just want us to make sure that we know that from the very get go. I want to make sure that we continue to question almost everything in our lives. Because whenever you just accept something as truth, that's whenever advantage starts to sneak in, and very rarely is it yours. Advantage meaning someone will take it from you instead of you get to exercise it for your own benefit. What I'd like for us to do, especially if you know you're a consequence kind of person, is to start very, very small. What would happen if, right? Exactly. And for those of us who live life on the reward side of things, I know that this is very much an ant and grasshopper situation for many of those listening. Because I think that, like I said earlier, I think a lot of us fall into one of either of those two camps. I think we can kind of bebop back and forth a touch, but for the most part, we're pretty steadfast in where we pitch our tents. So, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, here's the thing. I just got back from tour in Australia. Okay. And in order to very clearly identify what it is I'm talking about without being too political, so if that already got your hackles up, well, here we are. Easy kitty. What I want you to think about, while we're over there, it's wonderful, especially where we were stationed mostly in Sydney. There were tons of young families there with beautiful babies. Okay. And everyone seemed very happy, very congenial. It seemed as though everyone had plenty of time to do plenty of things. The general pace of life seemed just a little bit slower than what I'm used to seeing in the United States. Um, I think that maybe the political climate, the elections coming up, things like that, have us a little bit more on edge than perhaps we deserve to be, because it's easier to steer a population that is afraid. And I'm just as guilty as anyone. I promise you, I get angry, which is just fear's, ugly stepsister. I continue to see these beautiful families in Australia, and I loved watching it because people of varying ages starting their families, or, even younger families that had, somewhat older children. And I couldn't help but think about all of the problems that we seem to be facing in the United States. There's economic unrest. There are a lot of states that are putting restrictions on healthcare, especially for birthing people. And I want to sort of explore that for just a second in regards to the stick versus the carrot. There are very strong social structures in place for citizens in Australia who want to have a family. Tax monies go to those kinds of things to make sure they get proper health care, to make sure that they have proper delivery procedures, they have checkups and those kind of things that are much less of a burden on many Australian families than what I think many people are struggling with in the United States. And where we approach that over here, at least from my perspective, is the fact that, like, well, then you should get a better job so you have better health care to make sure that you can have children. Okay, that's one way to look at it, absolutely. In Australia, it isn't necessarily tied to your job. It's the fact that every citizen has a right to that. And when they want to become parents, should they want to become parents, they have wonderful support systems in place. Now, I don't think anyone in the United States wants to suffer a population decline. I don't think that anyone here wants to see certain numbers of our population dip, drop, etc. And that is a very valid concern in this day and age. And in Australia, I don't think that is as much of a concern because they are taken care of more readily by the tax dollars that their citizens pay into the government, which go in turn takes care of its citizens. Now, if the way that I'm approaching this has got you a little bit uncomfortable, I can understand that. I apologize that you are feeling that way. I do not apologize for saying it. This is my observation. It is my opinion. I think that Australians are operating on a carrot, whereas we in the United States are a system of stick. And I just want to look at that sort of thing where I think that there are a lot of people that are suffering in the United States because of the way we need babies born. Great. I agree. I think that'd be wonderful. I think there are many families here that would love to expand their number. I think that they're very concerned with how they would do that financially responsibly. Like, we'll get a better job, do this, do that, do that. Yes, I think that is a wonderful option for many. And I know how much money I pay in taxes. And I know that I would much prefer it to go to a family that needs just a little bit of assistance, not necessarily looking at the welfare state. What I'm saying is that anyone qualifies for assistance in Australia whenever they get ready to start a family or to have multiple children. And I think that is a wonderful way to use the resource. That is a carrot. It is a benefit of expanding your family unit. Whereas here, it feels almost like a threat. Like, well, you can't, if you find out that something is wrong with the pregnancy, if you find out that there is a threat to the mother's well being, well, that can be a problem because they consider, do we take the chance on the potential life or do we try to save the mother in order to make sure that they get a chance to perhaps birth again? I don't know. I don't know. What I'm saying is this is not one of those things where I'm trying to take a stance. I know I have a preference. And I think that that is something that a lot of people will. We all have opinions on these kind of things. And again, like what I was speaking of earlier, it comes down to how you were raised. It comes down to what you learned when you were just a whippersnapper. It depends on how open-minded you want to be moving forward. It also depends on what kind of experiences you had as an adult to know how your opinions fare on these sorts of things. I see a lot of things that happen, and people want to give a lot of credit to a deity, a higher power, and I definitely want to give respect and homage to that. I think that there's also a huge advantage in knowing that this higher power has blessed us with reason and love and grace and mercy to make sure as we move forward we can operate under those auspices as well. To know that choices made are not done lightly in many cases. And so we need to make sure that we give the grace where it is deserved so that we can all continue to focus on what is truly important, which is making sure that those who want and would be amazing parents get that opportunity and don't have to struggle to do so. Well, geez, Bullard, that got real political real quick. No, it didn't really. I really don't think that it did. What I'm saying is I think that anybody that needs help in a nation that is so incredibly fortunate as we are in the United States can get it without shame and without judgment. And if you feel like you should put something like that on it, well, I'm going to pray for you that the gospel that I read growing up and continue to try to live by in the way that I see fit will soften your heart so that you know that we're supposed to take care of one another and that it doesn't take a lot. Whether it's pennies on the dollar, whether it's taking 5 minutes out of your life to help someone who is very clearly in need, and just a small gesture could mean the world and change a life. That's what I expect of us. We're good people. If we weren't looking for happiness and contentment and joy and wonder and love, we wouldn't be tuning in or recording every week for the time that we get to spend together to do these kinds of things together, would we? No. No, we wouldn't. And it breaks my heart to think that there are forces out there that are trying to sway us in a direction that make us think that that is not the way that it was supposed to be in order to be good people and a wonderful community one to another. And I would like to say that community extends all across this beautiful planet. As cheesy as that sounds, I said it and I almost automatically felt a little bit low, just because it sounds so trite. I know it does. And I think there's part of me that's like, so what? What's your point? I do things on the daily that are absolutely ridiculous, and people look at me and they judge me and they raise eyebrows and they think funny things. I live my life for people to think funny things from the shenanigans that I pull. And I've lived a pretty great life so far, I think. So I want to make sure that I encourage you to do the same sort of thing. If you're looking at something and you're hesitant, if you're looking at a situation, you're like, "Ooh, I know what the right thing to do is. I'm nervous to do it. I don't know what people will think. I don't know if it will be well received." Fair, valid. And you know what? God bless you for thinking about that, for taking that into account. May I encourage you to think about that for a split second less and get to the business. Okay? That's the thing. I would rather err on the side of grace than omit on the side of shame. Is that okay? That's what I want to do. I want to be known as the guy that perhaps just is a little too loud, is a little bit much. Absolutely. But I was never considered the guy that didn't try, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Here's the thing. No matter how you feel, no matter where you worship, if you worship at all, it's one of those things where I can't escape the fact there's an entire science dedicated to it. Quantum mechanics, how that we're all connected, how tiny things literally connect us all in the grand scheme, in the mesh, in the skeins of destiny and delight and wonder and fantastic. We're all connected somehow, some way. Literally every single soul on the planet, those here, those gone, those who will be. We're all in this glorious mishmash, sketchy, skeiny, delicious. And the thing that I continue to ponder and watch happen on the regular is that tiny things that we do for one another, people we love, people we've known for years, strangers, folks who just look like they might get some benefit out of a kind word, that sort of thing builds a bond. Not necessarily between you and the stranger, not necessarily between you and your loved ones, though that could never hurt. I think what it does is it strengthens the bond that connects us all. It makes those tiny threads, those filaments, those little spider webs that come between each of our hearts, that connect all of our souls. I think what that does is it continues to thicken it so that it's not quite so invisible. Have you ever noticed that whenever you do something and whenever you start to see progress is whenever you really start to work? I just got back into the gym. I've been gone for 2 months. I went to the gym. I did, but I'll be honest, I didn't treat it with the kind of respect and discipline that it deserves for me to get the outcomes that I want. I just started a new gym here in Vegas after taking a couple of CrossFit classes in Bali. And I found this wonderful community full of really cool people who are very supportive, who are also a little competitive, and just a group of dedicated folk who want to make sure that they continue to improve their fitness. Wonderful. I did it before and I loved it. Whenever I left North Carolina, I did not look for a community here in Vegas because I thought that I would probably like try something else. My joints hurt. I worked really hard at it and nobody here's getting any younger. So it was one of those things like, maybe I should just give this a rest. And I did. And that was great. And now I got back into it. And the progress that I'm seeing after literally 3 classes and cleaning up my diet, making sure that I don't put anything in the temple that doesn't belong in the temple, I'm already starting to see a difference. I think that maintaining those bonds that connect us all by small gestures and small acts of kindness and love will make those threads that connect us thicker so that we can see the progress that we're making, so that we can see how those gains are getting made. So we will continue to do those things and double down on it and dedicate ourselves to the discipline to make sure that those things work in our favor, both individually and as a community. Reward. That's the carrot. Okay, well, if that's the carrot, then what's the stick? Okay, I'm glad you asked because here's the stick. What if we pull inward? What if we continue to watch out for ourselves and only ourselves? I'm here for self care, kids. Okay. Friends, make no mistake. I'm all about taking your moment, treating yourself every once in a while, making sure that you get enough rest, making sure that you work hard, play hard, and nap wisely. I also want to make sure that we say, we also need to make sure that we're active with our community in such a way that we continue to keep a balance. What we contribute is what we benefit from. I'm fine with it. If we start to pull away from our community, from our web, from our tribe, what are the consequences of that? Loneliness, inflammation is something that I dealt with a lot. My diet was terrible. I wasn't lifting heavy enough. I lost some muscle mass, but I didn't lose any weight, did I? My costumes didn't fit the way that I wanted to. My clothes didn't fit the way that I wanted to. Consequences of pulling away from a community that you know is effective, that loves you, that cares for you, that does for themselves in order to improve the community. Carrots and sticks. And I think that we can apply this to a lot of things in our lives. I really do. I think that whenever we do anything, there is something on the other side. It's outcomes. I think that's a nice way to look at it. It's very neutral. It's an outcome. I did this. I expect this to happen because I did this. Okay, great. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I don't like a sticker. Okay, heard. Thank you for throwing my words right back at me. We don't love labels. The outcome is expected. Great. Okay, so if I eat like a slob and I lie on the sofa and I watch Netflix all day and I don't go to the gym and I don't do my work and I don't journal and I don't study my language or my writing or any of these kind of things, what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to pull inward. I'm going to start to contract. I'm going to start to dwindle, to collapse. Whereas we flip that, what are the rewards of me doing the things I know that make me a better, bigger, stronger, kinder person? I look for people to connect with. I go to the gym. I eat healthy. I enjoy green vegetables more than once a week. I continue to shovel clean protein into the temple. All of these kind of things happen. And then what begins to happen? Well, my trousers begin to fit the way that I expect them to fit. I'm starting to fill out my jackets better. People smile at me more frequently because there is a light inside me that is more easily seen by those who know and love me, as well as those who don't, but hopefully will want to. Benefit, carrot. Which one drives you? Which one inspires you? Driven is great. Make no mistake, I love it. I think it's so impressive. I have friends that are so unbelievably driven. It is glorious to watch. It is tiring to watch. And occasionally, it's a little bit disconcerting to watch. People who are driven out of ambition and occasionally obsession, I can admire it to the point where I can get exhausted watching. I love it for them. I hope they're taking the time they need to kind of rebuild whenever they expend so much energy and they cover all this ground. I hope they've got opportunities and people in their lives that help recharge them, refresh them, and lift them up when they're starting to feel a little depleted. As for me and mine, I'm going to work hard. Absolutely. And then I'm going to make sure that I balance that out with time with people who make me feel amazing, both from what they're accomplishing and the fact that they want to spend their free time with me, or they want to work with me. They want to collaborate with me on something that they didn't want to do alone, or thought that maybe my presence or my talent or my contribution would make better. Oh, but James, I'm so busy. Yes, you are. You sure are. Oh, I got so much going on in my family and my job and my this and my that. Yes, you do. Which is why it's so important that whenever you are approached by these types of projects that you're very careful and discerning with them, because you don't want to throw too much at something that isn't going to pay back. Okay. Okay, I like where this is going. Good. Yeah, me too. Sometimes I talk to myself and sometimes I converse with myself. We know the difference, right? Yeah, if there are two people talking, one's a little higher voice than the other, that's me talking to myself. And then other times I will literally just sit here and back and forth it. I think it's so important to know where your motivation lies. And I think if you're a stick person, that integrating just a little bit more of the carrot would be good. Maybe you just need a little beta carotene. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of that orange up in here. That might be useful for anybody out there that is more afraid of what will happen if you don't than excited about what will happen when you do. Do you notice the difference there? If, when, what will happen if I don't? Consequence, stick. What will happen when I do? Reward, carrot. And I think it's really important to make that distinction. Language is so important. Okay, friends of mine, I love it. The guys and I just got back from tour. I think I've said that 14 times now in this episode. And it's fun because I can hear the guys using the word and instead of but a lot. And it's really fun because not only they use it, they picked up that little habit that I have as well. They'll and because they're still training to get rid of the but. And I think it's wonderful. Language is crucial for that. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you put into the world, whatever it is that you're putting out there, understand that 70% is going out and 30% is kind of spinning around back at home. Okay? What you're putting out there is sending a very clear signal to all those who are watching and listening. And you can't help but hear some of that on your own. Okay? So if you're focused more on the consequence, it's almost like an expectation of punishment if it does not happen. Whereas there is an expectation of reward when you do these things you know are beneficial to yourself, your community, your family unit, your organization, wherever it is that you're a part. It grows from there. 70% out into the universe to those around you, 30% stays at home because, again, you cannot escape what it is that you're doing. You're not immune to your own magic, okay? And I know that sounds a little weird. I'm fine with it. It's one of those things where you build a fire, okay? So it was just to avoid the magic metaphor, perhaps. You build a fire and you've got the wood and you've got the kindling and you've made a ring of stones around it so it doesn't get out of control. You've got your sticks that are gonna get your sparks going. You've got your flint, whatever it is, and you're doing the things. You're building the steeple. You've got the tinder underneath it. You're either using the sticks to get the friction or you're doing the flint to get the spark. It goes in there, then it starts to catch. And the light starts to emanate from what you've brought together. And the heat starts to build and the smoke, that tiny wisp starts to materialize and then you blow on it ever so gently. Just that it catches. You don't want to blow it out. You don't extinguish it. You want to give it the fuel that it needs in the oxygen in your breath to catch, to grow, to swell, to inflame. And then eventually you have this beautiful blazing fire. Now, there could be friends around the fire that are warming themselves from what that you did, and that is wonderful. And they make up the rest of the circle. You are still in the circle. You are not immune to the heat. You are not immune or insensitive to the light that you have helped create. So please understand that whenever you're putting this out into the world, whether it's your words or the fire or any other thing that you're doing, it affects you like it affects everyone else. It's not that you're doing for others, it's you're doing and others benefit, and whatever that is, it's also a part of your daily ritual and part of what you're integrating into your life from that moment forward. Please make sure it's serving you. I love the time that we get to spend together here at Radical Joy. I feel that some of the topics that I get to discuss with you are a lot more passionate or a lot more focused. And then there's sometimes that we just need to hold hands and just kind of walk by the river and figure some things out. I think that some ideas maybe don't need the time that we spend together on them, but we talk about stuff together and we just kind of like roam around until we get something delicious and helpful and useful out of it. Not every single one of these needs to be a cry or call to action. Some of these can just be sort of like a lollygag, and that's fine too. I do think it's important to know how you're motivated, to be aware of it, to be cognizant of it. Because the last thing I want you to do is to miss out on something because you're afraid, fear driven, consequence driven, instead of excited, joy driven, carrot motivated. If this is your first episode, we're so happy to have you here. If this is not your first episode, welcome back. Thank you so much for thinking enough of our platform, enough of me, enough of CLW Studios and what we try to do and put into the world to come back for more. If you're the kind of person who likes to leave a review, please do so. Make sure we know that you've left us a 5-star review on whatever platform where you're listening. Take a screenshot, send it to us. We would love to send you some swag about CLW Studios and Radical Joy. More than likely, it's going to be a sticker. It's going to have my face on it. And you can put it on something like a journal because you know we love a journal. You can put it on a coffee mug, a water bottle, a laptop. You can put it anywhere a sticker will stick. And we would love for you to represent what it is we're trying to do here and be one of our soldiers. As always, friends, we're so grateful to have you here in the audience. If you have any suggestions for future topics, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please reach out. All of our contact information is there in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If you have someone that you would love to hear on the podcast, yes, please. If you have connections with someone that you would love to hear and we could converse, that's great. We've got a lot of really exciting guests on the way for the rest of the year, which is very exciting. We're also coming up on 2 years of Radical Joy. Can you believe it? 2 years of doing this. So we couldn't do this without you. Just so you know, we couldn't do this without our listeners, without people supporting and loving and doing. So thank you so much for being here. And as always, friends, please never forget how much we love y'all. Thank you for taking time to share a moment of joy and hope with me. We're so grateful you're here. If this is your first time, take a moment to check out our archive. See if there's something else in there that fires you up, rekindles the joy in you. Hey, spread the word if you got something out of being with us today. We welcome your thoughts and suggestions. Now, I rarely run out of things to talk about, but if there's something I haven't covered that's on your mind or heart, I want to hear from you. To learn more about me and CLW Studios, follow the links in the show notes. Hey, don't forget, when you leave Radical Joy a review, be sure to send us a screenshot. We'll send you some kick-ass swag to show our gratitude. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 988 to reach the National Crisis Lifeline. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of James or CLW Studios. Please consult with your therapist or seek one in your area if you're experiencing mental health symptoms. Everything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Have a great one, and we will see you next week for another dose of Radical Joy. Love y'all.